So in the last few years, we've enjoyed a very successful partnership with the South Bay Workforce Investment Board, the WIB, on economic development issues in the South Bay, and specifically the promotion of enhanced broadband services for our cities. The WIB is led by one of the great leaders of the South Bay, Jan Vogel. He's been instrumental in securing the participation of our next speaker, and I'd like to ask Jan to come up and introduce him. Let's welcome Jan Vogel.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, I was going to come up here and talk about what Jackie has done because of this event here. I mean, look at all the people here that Jackie brings in. I was going to say how much I appreciate the South Bay COG and what they do for the South Bay. And I was going to say that this really is a South Bay City Managers Day to be honored. They have this on their calendar, and it's a City Manager Appreciation Day when they finally get all their mayor and council people out of City Hall and come here to this event. So I was going to say all that, but what I'm really going to say is I hate Jackie Bachrach. Can you imagine having to follow Dr. Patrick Soon-Chung? I mean, I absolutely hate Jackie Bachrach. But I will tell you this, Dr. Soon-Chung, it's so impressive with all this. I can't believe, I mean, can you imagine how smart this guy is? I mean, cancer, transportation, what else was there? An environment. And he owns part of the Lakers, and he has LeBron James, but he couldn't figure out how the Lakers could get over 500. What's wrong with this guy? Just terrible. He's a failure. My job really today is to introduce the next speaker, who I feel very sorry for following Dr. Patrick Soon-Chung. Bob Lanter is the executive director of the California Workforce Association. I happen to be the chairman of the California Workforce Association, representing 45 workforce boards in California. It's really the number one association for workforce in California and probably in the country. And I'm very proud of what Bob's done. He's been there for 6 years now. I was on the panel that hired him, and if he screws up today, I'll fire him. Bob Lanter is currently the executive director of the CWA, leading the way in workforce strategy and implementation of workforce innovation and opportunities for the state of California, with over 25 years of experience in the public sector and nonprofit industry, with experience in workforce development. You know, hearing Dr. Patrick Soon-Chung and all these wonderful things he's doing, I did want to mention that one of the things the South Bay Workforce Investment Board's doing, which brings together labor and business, is we just started a biotech program, BioFlex it's called, in which we're going to be developing local talent right here in the South Bay to become apprentices and pre-apprentices in the science industry. So we're going to develop people here that are going to be working for Dr. Soon-Chung and the other wonderful science companies in the South Bay and make the South Bay the hub of science technology. And we thank the County Board of Supervisors, particularly Mark Ridley Thomas, for the help and leadership that he's shown in that regard. Anyway, back to Bob Lanter. He's done a lot of stuff. He worked for the U.S. Department of Labor Training Administration as a federal project officer. Before taking over as executive director of CWA, he owned and managed the national consulting practice, where he and his team facilitated organizational retreats, team building, meetings, strategic planning, assessment projects, a lot of good stuff. He also developed and delivered training curriculum and keynote addresses in multiple topics of workforce development. He graduated from Cal State University East Bay with a bachelor's degree in personnel administration and industrial relations. Additionally, he is certified master facilitator from the Institute of Cultural Affairs, and he's doing a great job for CWA. We both hate Jackie Bachrach. Bob Lanter, come up here.
Boy, that's a great way to feel the love from your chair of your workforce, of your board of directors, Jan. Thank you very much. So, good afternoon, everybody. Really excited to be here with you today to share some thoughts on a topic that has been prevalent for the 6 years that I've been the director of the California Workforce Association, and that is, I'm supposed to do this, the future of work. And luckily for me, I am following Patrick, because all I have to say is he's going to need workers for all of that he's doing, which is the future of work. Thank you very much. Have a good day, everybody. Seriously, work is changing every day. The future, we talk about the future of work in Sacramento and in Washington, D.C. as if it was something that was going to happen 10, 15, 20 years from now. But the speakers you've heard today are evidence that the future is today. The future's here. And the gentleman that spoke before Patrick, who was from the Zero Emissions Transportation Organization, even coined a new term that I've never heard before with autonomous vehicles called range anxiety. So not only are we changing the way we work, but we're changing the way we speak, we're changing the way entertainment's delivered, we're changing the way we learn, we're changing science, we're changing the environment. Change is happening all around us, change is constant. And this is a topic that I argue with my 27-year-old son about all the time. He's a college graduate, and he tells me that he doesn't need to work because robots will take over the world very soon. And I say, son, Joshua, it's not so, because we have the power to unplug. That's the way I believe. So I wanted to share with you about the future of work. I look back, and I've done this for the last several years, about people who predict what may happen in the future. And let's just take a look at some of those predictions. First of all, the bullet points that are up on the slide come from a magazine called Quartz News website. And these are 5 predictions from the 1980s about work. And can you see this guy up here? He's in the beach in Aruba on his cell phone. That's the way I want to be. Future of work. He's working. So here's some of the things they said. The first thing is that we would work less and get paid more. They said that our pay, our hours, our attitudes that we get from our bosses, the physical environment, technology, automation wouldn't just make us more productive, they would make us rich. Well, unfortunately, workers today are much more productive than ever before, but they are not richer. In fact, studies will show that between 2005 and 2014, 2/3 of household incomes in 25 advanced economies have remained flat in terms of income generation. They also said that we'd work very remotely, like this gentleman on the beach. The internet definitely has prompted the creation of a decentralized digital workforce. 70% of the globe's professionals now work remotely at least once a week. How many of you in the room work remotely? Not quite 70%. You guys got some work to do here in the South Bay. But studies will further show that the state and nation's millennial workforce will work in about 10 years at the clip of 65% fully remotely. Right? The third bullet point says by the year 2000, machines will be producing so much that everybody in the U.S. will be independently wealthy. And the Time magazine predicted that we would have extreme time of leisure. But as of today, France, Germany, and the UK, the population of the workforce currently works 20% of every week. 20% of the workforce works every weekend. And in the United States, close to 30% of our workforce work weekends. We do not have extreme leisure. Lastly, we predicted the pink slip, and this was one of my favorite, right? This is the robots will take over. They predicted that Dry cleaners, farm workers, bank clerks, store cashiers will be gone. Of course, we can go into lots of airports, order from a humongous tablet, right, at a McDonald's or wherever we're ordering from. We can go to the ATM machine. ATMs, we're supposed to revolutionize the banking industry. We can go into grocery stores and self-checkout. Target's the same way. They were supposed to wipe out cashiers, but I was just in a grocery store last night. There's still cashiers in my local Raley's. I prefer to go to the cashier, actually. Because the truth of the matter is that while this technology has made it more convenient and easy for us, it's still, unfortunately, cheaper to hire workers than develop the high-octane robot replacements. Currently, it's still cheaper. No comments on whether that's good or bad. It just is. At the moment, I'll get to the comments. Lastly, the intellectual unions. Studies showed in the 1980s that we will be more self-managed as workers, that we wouldn't necessarily want to work for the money, that we'd want to work because we want to improve our world, right? 64% of older American workforce today say their first job was indeed chosen to make money. However, studies as recent as 3 years ago show that 57% of the millennial workforce say that they are looking to work because they want to enjoy themselves or that they want to change the world, right? So some of these predictions have come true. Not all of them have come true. Some of them have come partially true. Let's take a look at some other predictions. This is from the late 1900s. I think the study was from like 1992. Not that long ago, at least in my mind. 1988. These are some of the jobs that were predicted in 1988. We would have shuttle pilots that would be taking people into outer space on a continual basis. Shuttle pilots would be a permanent job. We'd have people who would train robots. We would have underwater ocean hotel managers, sports law specialists. We'd have astronomers that would actually map the moon's geography, and we would have a robot relations specialist. Once again, some of those have indeed come true. We do have sport law specialists. We have a shortage of wellness consultants. As we live longer, we need more and more of those jobs. There's not too many underwater hotels. In fact, I think there are just like 2 in the world. My point is this. People have been making predictions about work and the future of work for a long, long, long time. Some of them have come true, but some of them have not. So we keep being asked, let's predict, Bob. Bob, you're the Workforce Development Association. What's the future of work look like 10 and 15 years from now? So what I want you to do now, just for 1 minute, and I know this group likes to talk, turn to the person next to you and share with them one thing that you feel will happen with the changing future of work. One thing. Go ahead. It's like your headline. Give them your headline. Great. Okay. Your headline. Anybody want to share a headline? Yell it out. One person. Raise your hand so I know who you are. Jan? Autonomous vehicles for commercial transportation, like bus driving, those kind of things. What else? What's it? 5G. Excellent. What else? What was it? Walk to work. We're going to walk to work. Just from upstairs in my bedroom, downstairs to my family room. Put that in my contract, Jan. Well, let's take a look at what some of the headlines are on the future of work. Will jobs exist in 2050? Will robots, this is my son's favorite, will robots take my job? Robots are coming for jobs. As many as 800 million robots will be unleashed globally, right? In fact, there is a robot, I believe it was like Syria, that now has voting rights, right? Did you see that? So I hear all of these dire predictions that we're going to need universal basic income because not all of us will be able to work because there will just not be that many jobs available. That there will not be any more manufacturing that will be staffed by humans. It will all be robotics, right? And the question that I've always been trained to ask, always, from when I was in college, is this question. Is it true? This is, the old Socrates philosophy, right? Is it true? Is it absolutely true? Is it 100% true? And the answer really is always, as I learned, that past performance is the best predictor of future performance. So let's take a look at some past transformations of work. We started with the Industrial Revolution. I got to look at my notes because I'm not so good at the dates. But the Industrial Revolution happened at the end of the 17th century, where we started thinking about how machines can help us with manufacturing and production of things like iron. The idea was we need to improve efficiency in our business and our work. We started seeing the use of steam power and factories. We didn't even have factories back then. People were worried back then that we would lose work. But jobs existed and jobs survived. Next, we have the second Industrial Revolution, middle of the 19th century. Notice how the time period starts shortening as I go through these revolutions, right? So this was about 100 years, 75 years between the two revolutions. This was a great leap forward in technology, steel production, petroleum, electricity. This was the dawning of the public automobile and of airplanes. We are now able to travel, and we can move goods and services across the country and the world. People at this point in time were not afraid jobs would go away. In fact, they were excited that thousands, hundreds of thousands of jobs would be created. Now, if you're as old as I am, Jan, I'm just kidding. We lived to see this Industrial Revolution, right? It's the digital revolution. Electronics and information technology started to dawn upon us in the 1950s and the late 1970s. We shift from mechanical to analog to digital. The computer was on us, and digital record keeping started to be prevalent everywhere we looked. We started becoming used to mass production, widespread use of digital circuits, and cellular phones and the internet came on the scene. People were worried that the computer was going to take over. Movies like War Games. Anybody remember War Games? Where the computer started the nuclear war, right? Computers were taking over the world. And the world would end as we know it. We had several people who predicted the end of the world. But the reality is that we became more productive as an economy, more productive as a society. Jobs didn't go away. Jobs still survived. But what was true, and it was true in the previous three revolutions, jobs changed. So let's enter present day, which is really the advanced the dawning of the fourth industrial revolution. Here we have societies that are being embedded with technology. In fact, we have human beings that are, do you know this, that are embedded with technology? My dad has a hearing aid that he can answer inside his head. It's connected to his phone, and he can answer the phone in his hearing aid. So now you really think he's crazy. He can hear, but who's he talking to? Oh, he's on the phone, but his phone's not even hooked up. It's like Bluetooth technology. It's amazing. So technology is being embedded into our bodies. We are connected to one another in ways we never dreamed possible. We can talk to people around the world instantaneously. We have artificial intelligence. We have quantum computing, biotechnology. We just need to think about the previous speaker to see where we are in this revolution. So, what does all of that mean for the future of work? Well, I'm here today to maybe relieve many of you. Work is not going away. This is my own hypothesis. If past performance is the best predictor of the future, then we need to figure out how we shift with this industrial revolution so that we can capitalize on the jobs that are going to exist in the future. Dr. Shun Xiang, did I say his last name right? He is going to need a lot of workers for that technology that he's manufacturing. The autonomous vehicles. Even if we have highways in the sky where cars are flying, we're going to need a whole lot of air traffic controllers. Right? We're going to need workers. The problem is who's going to train them? How are we going to train them? And how do they get on the career pathway to capitalize on jobs that don't exist today, but will exist 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now? In the workforce development world, that's what we look at. And I just want to show you a couple things, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about what it means for you, the cities of the South Bay. So first of all, this is a new foundation for readiness, to be ready for work. And you can see the skills that you're going to need are going to be different. And this is what is now starting to show up in our career centers throughout the state of California and across the country in our job training programs. So work will be market-driven and user-centered. It's all going to be about the end user, the experience of the customer, right? How does a customer who does not want to or cannot, I choose not to, go to a grocery store, what's the interface through the internet to a company to deliver groceries right to your door on demand, right? It's really going to be about how we work with data and metrics to increase productivity. It's going to be about how work will be interwoven with learning. In fact, we as a society will never stop learning because the speed of technology is such that we have to continue to learn to stay on top of the technology. Lifelong learning has been a thing that's been around for quite a while, but it is a reality today. Work will be grounded in relating with one another and relating with machines. So I'm 51 years old. I have to learn technology all the time. I double all of my staff at the association. They're all young, and I applaud them for that because they teach an old dog new tricks regularly. Lastly, work's going to be modularized and reconnected. That means you could be working for 4 or 5 companies doing one job. The gig economy is here to stay, no matter whether we like it or not. Some of us do. Some of us do it out of necessity. But you may be working across 3 or 4 industries doing one job, right? Modularized and reformatted. These are the skills for the future. Many of them are present today and have been around for a while, like you got to problem solve, communicate with numbers, create with numbers, learn anything, anywhere. right? Has anybody used Slack? If you don't know what Slack is, look up Slack app. It's amazing. I resisted it for quite a while. I now use Slack app to communicate regularly and all the time in demand with my staff. So take a look at that. Cultivate inclusive communities, making sure we're not leaving anybody behind because we're a very social conscious society. Make friends with people and machines. Take initiative and self-advocate. It used to be we told our kids, you can be anything you want to be. Today we have to tell our kids, you could be anything you want to be if you work really hard for it. You have to self-advocate and take initiative. People will have social awareness, individual awareness, and self-discovery. And that brings us to soft skills. I still call them soft skills. They're now called essential employability skills. And you can see them there. Things like digital fluency, collaboration, entrepreneurial mindset, resilience, social diversity awareness. I spent 2 days last week with the Career Tech Education, I was trying not to use any acronyms, Career Tech Education Consortium of States. This was superintendents from public school systems from across the country who were thinking about how they were going to teach workplace readiness skills in high school. And they asked me to speak about workplace readiness skills of high school students. And I said, teaching workplace readiness skills as a class will never work. Teaching compulsory education using workplace readiness skills so that your students are working in teams, your students are being taught to be entrepreneurs, to be resilient, to collaborate, learning those skills that they need to go to work while you're teaching compulsory education is the way to go. That's how we have to change with our young people. My daughter, who's a junior in high school, cannot use her cell phone in class. It gets taken away and put to the teacher's desk. There's not a day that goes by in my world of work that I don't use my cell phone for work. Why aren't our kids able to use their cell phone? Now, I'm not saying they should be texting on an Instagram and Snapchat. I don't know how we're going to monitor that, but they should be able to use technology while they're learning in high school. We still have career centers in the state of California that don't allow LinkedIn and YouTube in the career centers when our job seekers have way more technology than we do. So we have to start teaching and supporting our young people with the new skills they're going to need to navigate the new workplace. How am I doing on time? All right. Perfect. I'm just going to start throwing my notes around. Okay. So, what does it mean to the South Bay cities? What's the future of work mean to all of you? A couple of things. The first thing that you have to do before you decide what you're going to do about the future of work is look at what you currently have. Where are your assets to determine where the gaps are and where they might become. So let's take a look at some of your demographics. You have a very diverse group of cities. You have some cities that have African American, Asian American, Hispanic American as the majority by a long shot. And you have some cities where white American are the majority by a long shot. So diversity is an asset to the South Bay. But with that diversity you have some challenges. So the Los Angeles County unemployment rate for the month of January was 4.8%. The nation's average is 4.0% for the month of January. So you're a little above the nation's average. That's pretty good, right? 4.8%. But look at some of these statistics. This is LA County, some of which is actually South Bay, right? 14.9% of people in LA County live at or below poverty. 21.8% of adults over 25 do not have a high school diploma. That's a hefty number. 52,000 homeless people in LA County. Now, we heard a stat just a little while ago, 3,500 in the South Bay. 20% use some form of public assistance to survive. And 17,000 inmate population, or 14% of the state of California here in Los Angeles. You have to deal with that challenge as you think about the future of work, because as your unemployment rate is low and your economy is full, where are industries going to hire their people? Where's the talent pipeline in the South Bay? How do you grow your own? You know, in California, that term has a whole new connotation these days. But how do you grow your own talent without importing people from Orange County, from other cities in LA, from the Inland Empire, right? Before we get to some solutions, let's take a look at some age breakdown, because, you know, age is important when we're thinking about the future of work. You have cities like El Segundo and Hawthorne and Inglewood that have a high percentage of young people and working age adults. Lots of workers in those communities. You also have these communities over here, Gardenia, Palos Verdes, Rolling Hills, and the balance of Los Angeles, where they have a high percentage of older population. With older population is going to come things like leisure activities for individuals who have been retired, financial services for individuals that are retired, wellness, home health aides, health advocates for those people who need benefits and services, right? Demographics are important. Then you've got, so that's kind of your supply side of the equation, and there's a lot more to the supply side than I'm able to show you in this presentation. This is the demand side. You have some of the world's most prominent and forward-thinking industries and companies in the South Bay. You are blessed with riches in this regard. Aerospace, technology, global communications, medicine, the military, and of course business. And there's some companies, and I didn't even list my favorite one because I forgot, but SpaceX, right? Love SpaceX. Where are they getting their workforce? How is technology and the future of work and the rapid pace affecting the work that they do? Because, ladies and gentlemen, this is who fills the future of work today and fills the future of work before anybody else. Companies can tell you how their workforce is changing. They bring on the new technology. They need to teach their current workforce and their future workforce. So, I promised Jackie that I would show a couple of slides about real jobs. So, here's, Jackie, this is for you. So, this is employment estimated between 2014 and 2024. And I think for me, yes, I look at kind of the numbers of people, and you can see that educational services is really where the growth is. Healthcare and social services, professional businesses, leisure and hospitality, that's where the growth is. But over here, this displays the sheer percentage of change. So this really shows you the industry's growth rate, the percentage of change. Even whether they hire a lot of people or a small number of people, it shows the pace of change. And every industry is growing. Construction is a big one, leisure hospitality, administrative support, educational services, and healthcare. Everyone's growing except for manufacturing, right? But I think if Patrick has his way, that will change too. So you have a tremendous amount of growth happening over the next 10 years, right? Again, the question becomes for you cities, if I'm trying to attract business and I'm trying to do economic development, where's the talent pipeline? 4% unemployment rate? The talent pipeline lays really in a couple of places. It's in those targeted populations that aren't currently in the workforce, and it's in our young people who are in high school. So these are jobs that are going to be growing. The top 10 fastest growing occupations in the LA, Long Beach, Glendale area. Personal care aides is probably not a surprise, is the number one. It's an aging population. We're living longer. We need services, right? And then you just see it's a lot of construction and healthcare. We've got some web development in there, but no surprise with the construction boom that's going on up and down the state. There is not a region, there are 14 workforce regions in the state, there is not one region where construction isn't in the top 3 industry sectors that are growing. So, my recommendations. Perfect timing. My recommendations. So the pictures I have here, you may have actually seen some of these locations. This is your South Bay Workforce Development Board. And Jan, I'm not just saying it because you're the chair of my board, because I would say it if I was in any area of the state of California about the workforce boards. If you're not working with your workforce boards, you need to. There are 4 career centers in South Bay. There are 2 teen centers in South Bay. But workforce boards do so much more than that. People don't necessarily know that, but I think you guys do. The workforce board here in the South Bay, I think Jackie or somebody mentioned it earlier, is working with the South Bay COG to do the broadband expansion study so that businesses can be connected and individuals can be connected very quickly to the world of work. That's the type of work workforce boards do from a strategic nature. So you want to meet with them, not only to hire individuals, but talk to them about where business is growing, where industry is growing. And here are my recommendations. First one, there's a thing we do in the workforce world called sector work, where we bring together like companies in one industry, and we really just kind of ask them what keeps them up at night, what's the future of work look like. You know, in the Bay Area where I live, housing is a huge deal. So as a workforce system, if we don't take care of the housing issue, there will be no workers for those companies. So this sector work is really critical because it kind of connects the demand side to the supply side. Career pathway development, and probably just as important, articulation. If I'm a young person and I want to get a career, if I want to end up being one of those, I guess, nuclear scientists that works for Patrick, what's my pathway from high school to there, right? So start thinking about what are our career pathways for industries in our region, and more importantly, how do we articulate that to the students and to the students' parents? Because in California, college for all is still our mantra, but do you know out of every 100 ninth graders in California, only 12 get their advanced degree? On average, high school graduates take 7 years to launch a career. I have 2 of them living at home that are above average. Community engagement's really key. So engage your communities, cities, in lifelong learning. Make sure your adult schools, your tech schools are all online, teaching curriculum that your business needs. This is all about sector work, kind of informing education and workforce policy. Think about the gig workers. How do we support the gig economy and not fight the gig economy so that we're protecting workers by educating them on how to file taxes, what it means to have a 1099, negotiate contracts, things like that. Lastly, I'll finish with this. In California, we have to go back to honoring work in high school. We have to figure out a way to advance youth apprenticeship programs so that young people can work in real industry while they're going to school. That apprenticeship program must be permeable so that when they finish an apprenticeship program, they have at least an AA degree, because we do dual credit enrollment between high school and community college. And finally, it has to be permeable so that when somebody finishes their apprenticeship program and they have their AA degree, they maybe they can have auto entry into the CSU system if they so desire. So, those are my recommendations. Jan knows them all. I believe we are called to be architects of the future, not our victims. Let's build the future together. Thank you very much.